There are four basic types of animal tissues, namely the epithelial tissue, the muscular tissue, the connective tissue, and the neural tissue. Where do you find this compound epithelium? They cover the dry surface of skin, moist surface of buccal cavity, pharynx, that is the food pipe, connective tissues which are distributed in the complex animal body, and binding tissue. So areolar tissue is one example for loose connective tissue. Hello everyone, welcome back to session 2 of this chapter 7 called Structural Organization in Animals. Myself, B. Shobharani from the Department of Biology, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, the Temple of Excellence. Hope you remember in my first session of this interesting chapter, we were studying about tissues. How important these tissues are for the human body, particularly in multicellular organism, and how advantageous it is, as you know, the group of cells make a tissue, and group of tissues make an organ, and group of organs make an organ system, and group of organ system make an organism. So moving on to the next aspects of this particular chapter, we were studying about the types of animal tissues, where we studied about four very important types of tissues. There are four basic types of animal tissues, namely the epithelial tissue, the muscular tissue, the connective tissue, and the neural tissue. So in the last session, we were discussing about the epithelial tissue, where the epithelial tissue is broadly classified into two main types. One is called simple epithelium, and the second one is called compound or stratified epithelium. Continuing the remaining concepts of this epithelial tissue, as we know, simple epithelium means it is made up of a single layer of cells, and the very uniqueness of this epithelial tissue is the cells rest on the basement membrane. So we studied about four types of epithelial tissue, namely we studied about squamous epithelial tissue, then second one cuboidal, third one columnar, and fourth one was ciliated. So moving on to the next type of epithelial tissue called glandular epithelial tissue. Glandular epithelium. Here you can see the beautiful picture of the glandular epithelium and types of glandular epithelium. Types of glandular epithelium. Now, what is glandular epithelium? It is a modified cuboidal or columnar epithelium. How do we define this glandular epithelium? The very word itself will tell you. Whenever we use the word called gland, it has something to do with secretions. So glandular epithelium means what? That which secretes certain secretions. So it is a modified cuboidal or columnar epithelium. Just like ciliated epithelium was a modified cuboidal or columnar epithelium, even glandular epithelium is also a modified cuboidal or columnar epithelium. So get specialized for secretion. As I said, the word gland refers to what? Something which has to do with secretion. The main function of gland is to secrete certain secretions. For example, like exocrine glands, they secrete certain secretions called like exocrine secretions. But the secretions of the endocrine glands, we don't use the word called secretions, we use the word called hormones, right? Now, they have been broadly classified into, they get specialized for secretion. So there are simple glands, exocrine glands, and endocrine glands. So what are the three types of glandular epithelium? We come across simple glands, exocrine glands, and endocrine glands. Simple glands having unicellular and isolated cells like of alimentary canal, and the second type is called multicellular, consisting of cluster of cells as in salivary gland. Like simple glands, one is simple gland, second one is the multicellular gland, third one is exocrine, and fourth one is endocrine gland. So here the simple glands have unicellular. Here you can see they are unicellular. Here you can see the unicellular, that is simple glands of alimentary canal, you can see They are isolated, unicellular and isolated cells, just like of alimentary canal. Multicellular, the very word itself will tell you, consists of cluster of cells, group of cells. Here you can see cluster of cells, like as in salivary glands. So again, there are two types, exocrine glands and endocrine glands. Tear glands is an exocrine gland, salivary glands is an exocrine gland. What is the difference between an exocrine and endocrine? The exocrine secretions, as I said, glandular means the very function is to secrete certain secretions, and the secretions of the exocrine glands pass through ducts or pipe-like structures. Hence, they are called as duct glands. And endocrine glands are called ductless glands. They don't have ducts. So the secretions of exocrine glands are called secretions, and those secretions pass through ducts or pipe-like structures. Whereas the endocrine secretions are not called as secretions, they are called as hormones, which do not pass through ducts, but they are directly poured into the bloodstream. So exocrine gland, the secretory products transported to a point by means of a duct, and these glands secrete mucus, saliva, ear wax, milk, digestive, like mammary glands produce milk, the digestive enzymes in the digestive system, saliva of the salivary glands. All these are called pancreatic juice of the pancreas. All these are called, I think pancreas has a double role. It is a heterocrine gland. It is both an endocrine and an exocrine gland. The exocrine part of pancreas produces pancreatic juice, and the endocrine part of pancreas produces hormones like insulin and glucagon. So exocrine gland, the secretions are transported to a point by means of a duct, and these glands secrete mucus, saliva, ear, like what we have, wax, ear wax, milk, then the digestive enzymes, etc. Endocrine glands are called ductless glands. Why they are called ductless glands? Because the secretions here, they are called as hormones, and they don't pass through the ducts, but the secretions called hormones are directly poured into the bloodstream. So endocrine glands commonly called as ductless glands because the secretory products are directly poured into the blood. The gland secretes chemical substances, what we call the word as hormones. Hope you have understood what is glandular epithelium. So what is glandular epithelium? It is a modified cuboidal or columnar epithelium, gets specialized for secretion. What are the types? Simple glands, multicellular glands, exocrine glands, and endocrine. What are simple glands? Simple glands having unicellular and isolated cells, cells of like alimentary canal. Multicellular glands consisting of cluster of group of cells, hence the name multicellular, as in salivary glands. Then exocrine glands, as I said, the secretions produced the secretions that are produced are transported to a point by means of a duct. So these are called as what? Duct glands. These are called as the duct glands. And these glands secrete mucus, saliva, earwax, milk, digestive. Then endocrine glands are called ductless glands. Why they are called as ductless glands? Because the secretions do not pass through ducts, but the secretions called hormones, the chemical substances, are directly poured into the bloodstream. Like good number of endocrine glands like adrenal gland, thyroid gland, testes, ovary, parathyroid, all the pineal gland, pituitary or hypothalamus, all these are called as endocrine glands. Moving on to the compound epithelium. So that those were the types what we studied in simple epithelium. What is compound epithelium? Made up of more than 2 layers of cells, hence the name compound, or we use the word called stratified. So here you can see the multi-layered cells. So this is a picture of a compound epithelium. Compound epithelium. The types what we have studied, that is squamous, then cuboidal, columnar, ciliated, glandular epithelium. All those were the examples for simple epithelium because they are made up of only 1 layer of cells. Whereas the compound epithelium is made up of more than 1 layer of cells. Hence the name compound, or we can also use the word called stratified. And limited role in absorption and secretion. So they have a limited role in absorption and secretion. Main function is to provide protection against chemical and mechanical stresses. So what is the main function of this compound epithelium, which is also called as what? Stratified. If it is more than one layer, we use the word called stratified. Compound means what? Made up of more than one layer of cells. It has a limited role in absorption and secretion. Main function is to provide protection against chemical and mechanical stresses. So they cover the dry surface of skin, moist surface of buccal cavity, pharynx, inner lining of ducts of salivary glands and pancreatic ducts. So where do you find this compound epithelium? They cover the dry surface of skin, moist surface of buccal cavity, pharynx, that is the food pipe, inner lining of duct of salivary gland and pancreatic duct. So what is compound epithelium? Made up of more than one layer of cells. And I think, as I said, the very important feature of the epithelial tissue is what? Presence of basement membrane. So made up of more than one layer. Here you can see multi-layered cells. There it was only single layered cells in simple epithelium. Limited role in absorption and secretion. Main function is to provide protection against chemical and mechanical stresses. They cover the dry surface of skin, moist surface of buccal cavity, pharynx, ear, inner lining of duct of salivary gland and pancreatic duct. Moving on to a very important concept called cell junctions. The very word itself will tell. Junction is a region where it meets. So what is cell junction? Cells of the epithelium are held together with little intracellular matrix. So cell junction provides structural and functional link between the cells. So it acts as a link. Like we have this railway junction, bus junction. So junction is like, it is like a meeting point. So it connects. So in a similar way, cells of the epithelium are held together with little intercellular. That is very unique feature of epithelium, where we come across little intercellular matrix or jelly-like substance. And cell junctions provide structural and functional link between the cells. So there are three types of cell junctions. One is called the tight junction. Second one is called the adhering junction. And third one is called the gap junction. So here you can see tight junction, adhering junction and gap junction. So the first one is tight junction. This is the tight junction. And this is called the third one, gap junction. Now, what is this tight junction? First of all, cell junctions provide what? Structural and functional link between the cells. So tight junction help, the very word itself will tell you, help to stop substances from leaking across the tissue. So it will prevent the leaking of the substances from the cell. So hence the name tight junction, because the cells are here. You can see the tight junctions. These are the tight junctions. So next, adhering junction performs cementing. You know what is cementing? Binding substance, like how cement binds the brick and the the sand. So in a similar way, adhering junction perform cementing to keep neighboring cells together, to bind the neighboring cells together. Hence the name adhering junction. What is gap junction then? Facilitate the cells to communicating the cytoplasm of adjoining cells for rapid transfer, joins small molecules. Hence it is called as what? Gap junction. Right. Now what is cell junction? Cells of the epithelium, as we know, are held together by very little intracellular matrix, and cell junctions provide structural and functional link between the cells. And what are the three types of cell junctions? One is called the tight junction, adhering junction and the gap junction. This is usually asked in the examination. So what is tight junction? Help to stop substances from leaking across the tissue. Adhering junction perform cementing to keep neighboring cells together. Then gap junctions facilitate the cells to communicating the cytoplasm of adjoining cells, the neighboring cells, for rapid transfer and for joining the small molecules. So here you can see the gap junction, adhering junction and the tight junction. So that was all about the epithelial tissue. Moving on to the second very important type of animal tissue, that is the connective tissue. The very word itself will tell you, that which connects is called as a connective tissue. So first one was epithelial tissue. So we have studied about what is epithelial tissue, what are the two basic types of epithelial tissue, that is simple epithelium and compound epithelium. And in simple epithelium, we have studied about squamous epithelium, then we have studied about cuboidal epithelium, then columnar epithelium, ciliated epithelium, glandular epithelium. Then we have studied about compound epithelium. In compound, we have studied about simple glands, multicellular glands, exocrine glands, and endocrine glands. Then we have studied about cell junctions, where we have studied about tight junctions, adhering junctions, and gap junctions. Moving on to the next very important animal tissue, that is called connective tissue. Connective tissue. The very word itself will tell you. Connective means what? These are all the types of connective tissues. These are all called the types of connective tissue. So what is a connective tissue? The very word itself will tell you. Which are distributed in the complex animal body and binding other tissues, organs, and body parts. So connective tissues which are distributed in the complex animal body and binding tissue. As I said, the very word itself will tell you. Connecting means binding. Binding tissues to tissues, organs to organs, and the body parts. So they are the most abundant and widely distributed tissues. Next to epithelial tissue, these are the most abundant, largely found and widely distributed tissues, because all over the body you can come across this connective tissue. And the special function of this connective tissue is linking and supporting other tissues, organs of the body. So special function is what? Linking. Hence it is called as what? Connecting and supporting other tissues, organs of the body. And what are the types of connective tissue? Connective tissues include cartilage, bone, adipose, and blood. So what is a connective? Here you can see compact bone is there. Then the blood. Here you can see the dense connective tissue, adipose tissue, areolar tissue, and the blood here. Here you can see the bone. Right. So this is dense connective tissue, adipose tissue, areolar tissue, then the bone and the blood. Blood is a liquid connective tissue. We all know blood, how important it is. Blood is a liquid connective tissue. Blood is a liquid connective tissue. Blood is a liquid. So what is a connective tissue? Connective tissues which are distributed in the complex animal body and binding other tissues, organs, and body parts. So most abundant and widely distributed tissues is the connective tissue. What is the special function of connective tissue? Linking and supporting other tissues, organs of the body. What are the types of connective tissue? Cartilage. First one is cartilage. Soft bone is called cartilage. Hard rigid structure is called bone. Then third one is called adipose. Fat tissue. You can also use the word called fat tissue. Then blood. Blood is a liquid connective tissue. Blood is a liquid connective tissue. Then in all connective tissue except blood, the cells secrete fibers of proteins called collagen. So very, very important. In connective tissue, there are special, except for blood. Blood we don't find collagen fibers. The cells secrete fibers of proteins called collagen and elastin. So it is that which gives sliding movement for the muscles and the bones to move. The flexibility of the body is made possible by the movement of the muscles and the bones. So there's a special type of protein called collagen and elastin. Collagen and elastin. The fiber provides strength, elasticity, and flexibility to the tissues. So I think all the movements of the body are made possible by this collagen and elastin. That is, it is responsible for providing tensile strength, then elasticity and flexibility to the tissue. So very important is there is a presence of a ground substance, or what we use the word called matrix. Matrix is nothing but a jelly-like substance. Jelly-like substance. It is a jelly-like substance in between the cells, and it is a modified polysaccharide. So in all connective tissue except blood, the cells secrete fibers of proteins called collagen and elastin. The fiber provides strength, elasticity, and flexibility to the tissue. Presence of ground substance or matrix in between the cells, that is nothing but modified polysaccharides. Then what are the types I said? Loose connective tissue. it has cells and fibers loosely arranged in semi-solid ground substance. Ground substance is nothing but called matrix. So loose connective tissue, it has cells and fibers loosely arranged in a semi-solid ground substance called matrix. And a classical example for loose connective tissue you can take is areolar tissue. Very, very important tissue. Here you can see the picture of the areolar tissue. Now let us understand. So what is loose connective tissue? It has, hence the name loose. That is, it has cells and fibers loosely arranged in a semi-solid ground substance or the matrix. And a classical example for loose connective tissue is areolar tissue. So areolar tissue is one example for loose connective tissue. And where is it present? It is present beneath the skin and it supports the framework for epithelium. So it acts as a supporting structure for epithelium, as we know that the skin has what? Compound epithelium. And it contains cells like fibroblasts, secretes fibers, macrophages and mast cells. So areolar loose connective tissue, here you can see the mast cells and this is called as matrix. This is called macrophages, fibrocytes and white fibers. Here you can see the white fibers, matrix, mast cells, histocytes and fibrocytes. So loose connective tissue, it has cells and fibers loosely arranged in a semi-solid ground substance. And a classical example is areolar tissue. Areolar tissue is one example of loose connective tissue present beneath the skin. It supports the framework for epithelium. It contains cells like fibroblasts, secretes fibers, macrophages and mast cells. Hope you have understood the concepts what I have explained in this particular session about this very interesting chapter called structural organization in animals. So I'll be back with some more interesting concepts of this chapter. Till then, goodbye and thank you.